so much for coming out here today for this special impromptu memorial reading for Anya Silver. I was really touched when Andy got in contact with me about coming to do this. We've all at the Hudson Valley Writers Center really loved Anya's work since before we even knew her. She had an amazing poem a day in poets.org, and I'm going to read that poem later on today. It's called In the Sanitarium, and because of that poem I reached out to her and asked her if she wanted to read here. So she's been a friend of the center for the past several years, and we're really happy today to be able to celebrate her life and her amazing poetry. I want to thank all of you for coming, and I want to thank all of our sponsors, including Arts Westchester and NISCA and all of the foundations. You can see that on the brochure. If you're new to the center, please grab one of our brochures before you leave. I'd like to right now turn the floor over to Andy. Please welcome Andy Silver.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. I blame the back to school sale at Staples and the country of Myanmar. It's a long story. So we're here to mark a year without Anya, but we're here to most of all celebrate her life and her art. We've spent, her close family and I and so many others have spent the last year in a kind of state of shock, especially the first part of last year. And at least I find myself, still in that state of shock, but also growing alongside that, a kind of daily appreciation for the woman that Anya was and the artist that she was, and for everything that is still in the world of Anya's. I marvel at her brilliance and her beauty and her humor and her beautiful art. And so we're here just to kind of celebrate her work and her as a person. And so I want this to be pretty informal and warm. And I feel like, Anya was raised in part in the Quaker church for a few years, and she used to explain that people would wait for the Spirit to move you, and her joke was that the Spirit seemed to move the same people week after week after week. But if the Spirit moves you, come on up and read a poem, please. And I should ask too, did anybody bring like all of the copies of her books with you? The four copies of books? Well, this should be interesting. I might be running to the car in a minute or two to bring another book. So we have some books for sale over here.
No, the village bookstore couldn't get them in time, but we have a sign-up sheet.
I have books in the car, which I will now retreat to. No, I'll do that afterwards.
Yes.
And so all of the introductions are in your program. We have a lot of people to move through who want to share our poetry with us, and feel free to speak a few words beforehand if you want to, or just read the poem. It's totally up to you. And so I'm going to call up Steve Bluestone first to say a few words and read a poem. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Andy. It's a privilege to be here. It's a wonderful venue. Very impressive. And they built it for the writers, too. I'm going to read the 93rd name of God, which is in the 93rd name of God, as I'm sure you all know. It's one of my favorites of Anya's. The 93rd name of God, Yanor, O light. If I can breathe light into my nostrils, if breath can open my crown so that light pours downward and then outward, light drenching the brain and puddling in my sockets, light running down my throat, straight into the cavity of my chest, and then spreading a light, slick, light flurry, cracker, snap, torrent of loose light rushing through ventricles, winding through colon, light seeping into the slug of liver and stomach, threading through the ribs and pooling in the pelvis, and then through the blood and lymph, causing muscles to shimmer from within and the skeleton to a dancing lantern, a lattice filled with fireflies, light in the joints, the long and heavy bones, light forming sparkling runnels in the toes, and if the light didn't remain in the body, but instead, depending again on the breath, flared through the skin and dispersed into a fog, a mist encasing the whole light-soaked body. What then of my body could be said to be separate from this light? And if the light were related to the light of stars, which it must be, as well as to the light of the sun, then what of me would not be star cloud, star stream, if I could immerse myself in the 93rd name of God? I would fear no longer tumor or death. I would drink light. I would rinse my hair in light. I would rub my shoulders with its grains and seeds. I would anoint myself in lunar oil. I would make love with every wide open, glowing, humming, luminous cell of my body, pulsing and aflame. This is another one from a manuscript in progress, shall we say? A manuscript, actually, in editorial progress, that I hope will see the light of day someday. St. Agnostica. It's called The Work. And this is a very famous epigraph from a Talmudic commentary, and it's just exactly right for what she has to say. This poem is called The Work, and the epigraph is, "It is not ours to finish the work, but also not ours to abandon it." Rabbi Tufan. Even if I lived to be 200, like some biblical matriarch, it would not be time to write down everything I want to write down. Not time even to catalog the details of a single room. In mine, I note my great aunt's ivory brooch, a burned out fur scented votive, a pile of blankets needing washing after my son's sickness, and my son's knees bent as he reads on the bed. I could keep writing on and on, each moment in its own universe. To memorialize, but since time is never enough, cracked tile, bottle of blue nail polish, a double stacked books, there's less sorrow in not having enough of it. No completing the work. The poems, those fur-faced bats that swoop and quiver. But I can't stop. Can't let future grief still the pen, or let worry shackle my wrists, quick stammer down across the page. God sees everything. Or God doesn't. Who knows? I want to be like the icon my father visited, the Mary who wept oil. All the world's oil. Someone must weep it. Thanks, Andy.
Not sure if that one opens.
Oh, I see.
Maybe you can go around this way and
Okay, that's okay. Does anybody have a copy of How I Watch You Disappear? If not, I
yes,
do.
I do right here.
All right, I'll move it.
And I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer almost 2 years ago, and was not quite a year diagnosed when Anya died. And I only got to know her posthumously, and she has had a tremendous impact on my writing and my kind of processing of my diagnosis. And so I'm like 3 days post chemo, so I'm having that steroid crash. So if I get a little emotional, I can always blame cancer. So as we all should. So here's how to talk to a sick woman. Do not make me your nightmare. Refrain from invoking me among the ABCs of your fear. There's no cure. It's true. That's why I'm so blue. I'm not your "it could be worse," or proof of the smallness of your woes. My bad luck is not your good luck. And by the way, fuck you. Your pity, though meant to be kind, undoes me. I find it dreary. Nor am I the Madonna of cancer, your bow-arched Amazon. Make me your inspiration if you like, but I don't deserve praise. My days are as ordinary as yours. And when I die, what will you do? You'll have lost your light-strung Santos. Seed me back to my story. My veins spout open and close like magic. I don't dread death more than you do. Only I get to say I'm tragic. Stage 4. I have no other body, no other city. Greta Jovanovic, Danilov. Suddenly, gloved hands empty the rooms of my house, and I'm told to take only what I can carry. Faces turn away from me. I'm taboo now. The boat I'm set inside is crowded with others like myself. They come from their own cities. Cautiously, we take each other's hands and trade stories. We learn of the lucky few who return, who are able to cross back over. And in time, their shame comes to be known as victory. We use words that once embarrassed us: courage, prayer, miracle. And always, we long for our old homes. We draw scarves over our faces when we weep, singing the songs of our ancestors. In this exile, no pillar of dust and fire guides us. Our passports have been stamped. Our wrists and collarbones have been marked. Even when the old promises begin to fall away, when we see less clearly the gardens of our former lands, still we are together, friends. And we know what our beloveds do not yet know. We can see through each other to the lapping silence beyond the Milky Way.
To a Healthy Friend, and this is in Second Bloom, if you have this book. And I, of course, picked this poem because I am that healthy friend, not to Anya, but just in life, and I feel incredibly lucky. to be that healthy friend. And I know that's not a status that anyone has a lockdown on, but I'm grateful for it in the present. So, let me just take a breath here. Wow, the rain is really going down, and yet it's so quiet. Okay, to a healthy friend. What is suffering but tedium? Picking pebbles from lentils, numb feet stumbling to the bathroom, hoping to make it to the toilet on time. But off go the panties to be scrubbed. We're gross and boring. And if no one wants to listen, I don't blame them. I was that way too. Do you think I want your dish rag pity run all over my lap? Your cat-eye comfort? Everyone dies. That's supposed to lift me to my toes and spin my final pas de deux? Tell you what, leave the suffering to us. You're not invited. Eat pound cake till your butt will burst. Lose everything.
Jennifer, there's somebody at the door. Jennifer.
Thank you.
Strawberries and snows.
Hi, I'm Marcella Murray, and I wasn't one of Anya's students, I was one of Andy's students, and somehow I ended up accidentally being one of Anya's students. She just kind of took me in anyway. So I'm going to read Strawberries and Snow, which is one of the first poems of hers that I read. Belief comes easily to the ill. Miracles fall from their lips like gems or worn like secret amulets. A woman, I'm told, brushed her steps of snow and found the very thing she craved. Strawberries, fresh as early summer, dimpled sweet and red beneath the rye. Pink climbed back to her ailing cheeks the way new blood makes the body sing. And yet, no one talks of her sister, who also searched, found nothing there. She swept and swept until she fell. I've been so good, she wept, the wind remorseless over earth that wouldn't bear.
Constantine was coming. We were right on time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Andy, for agreeing to allow me to read today. It's just such an honor here, and I'm so sorry I missed somebody in the beginning. This is my first time writing the Hudson Valley. So, my name's Konstantin Kulikov, and I'm one of those people that never met Anya in person, but felt a profound devastation last August. And I'm just connected to her over a Russian, Soviet heritage. I'm a Russian immigrant myself, and I look to Anya as a kind of a mentor who's been in the New World much longer than me and was able to keep a legacy. And in some way, she even knew the Russian poets better than I did in translation, especially the contemporary ones. But we always had an interesting disagreement about Mayakovsky, and I'll get back to that. But Andy said that it would be perfect if I read a very short poem I wrote a few months ago. It was in the Dominican Republic, and I woke up and I saw a moon, and it just looked so tiny, like it was touching the horizon. And I asked myself, that has to be something of Anya that I've been reading in this collection, Second Bloom, The Strawberry Moon. So this was my response to Anya Krugovoi Silver. grief swells like a balloon. The moon is a small light bulb drooping over my garden. I sit at the balcony drinking strawberry tea. Anya, is it you examining that thin, lacy moon? Or are you rustling the frightful palms, silver words forming on green leaf? I look up, and the moon's halogen body is sinking over rooftops and fields. Sip by sip, grief swells like a balloon. Thank you. The next poem is the original Anya poem I would like to honor with my reading today. It's a very uncomfortable, difficult poem. I talked to Andy about being able to do it, and he saved the spot for me. And this is now coming back to Mayakovsky. Mayakovsky was one of my favorite poets, but I don't know for the wrong or right reasons, but I appreciated her saying, I never got into that guy. So, yet when I read Metastatic, I couldn't help but thinking, I hear Mayakovsky. And I don't know if it's the good or the bad side we disagreed on or agreed on, but there's something about that rough and raw, aggressive braggadocio that you can admire in this poem, but you should be critical in a towering man, a white man running around Russia. So, Metastatic. I'd like a long braid to lasso my rage away, to stand on a stage with a garter belt and thigh-high boots and stomp my feet through the floor, like to put my face right up against someone else's face and scream until the scream knocks me to my knees, coughing. I could become an arsonist. Delicious click of the lighter. Every time someone I love dies, I'd like a diamond to light the hilt of a dagger or tip an arrow. I'd like to shoot the whole goddamned universe through its infinite starry center and watch it suck into itself, scattering the suns and galaxies over each other like a jar of tipped glitter. Don't tell me not to be angry. Do you know how close I am to flying my whole animal body at you? How I come about being hit back or don't care being spat on or bruised? Humiliation means nothing to me. I have nothing to lose. If you push me off a building, I'll see. I'd jump up in front of a bullet if I could. I'd let someone wring my neck. If only I knew it would hurt God just one bit to watch me die. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susanna. I chose this poem because it was one of the poems I remembered Anya reading in this room when she read here, I think it was about 3 years ago. And so this is just an echo of her original reading here, just read. I stand in Walgreens while my mother sleeps. The store is fluorescent and almost empty. My father is ailing in a nursing home. My friend is dying in the hospital. What I want tonight is lipstick, as pure a red as I can find. no coral undertones, no rust or thorn, just red. Ignoring the salespeople, I untwist tubes and scroll each color on my wrist till the blue veins beneath my skin disappear behind smeared bars. I select one. Back in my mother's apartment, silence. I limb my lips back out of my wan face. There they are again, smacky and wanting.
I got to meet Anya 2 years ago when Jennifer Franklin introduced her to me at a WP. She was walking by our table. I don't even remember what city that conference took place in, but I do very clearly remember meeting Anya. And I'm going to read the poem, Leaving the Hospital, from her book, 93rd Name of God. Leaving the hospital. As the doors glide shut behind me, the world flares back into being. I exist again, recover myself, sunlight undimmed by dark pains, the heat on my arms, the earth's breath. The wind tongues me to my feet like a doe licking clean her newborn fawn. At my back, days measured by vital signs, my mouth opened and arm extended, the nighttime cries of a man withered, child size by cancer, and the bells of emptied IVs tolling through hallways. Before me, life, mysterious, ordinary, holding off pain with its muscular wings. As I step to the curb, an orange moth dives into the basket of roses that lately stood on my sick room table, and the petals yield to its persistent nudge, opening, manifold, and golden. Thank you.
The title of Anya's poem is most appropriate today, Kindness. Last week, a nurse pulled a warm blanket from a magical cave of heated cotton and laid it on my lap, even wrapping my feet. She admired my red sandals. Once, a friend brought me a chicken she had roasted and packed with whole lemons. I ate it with my fingers while it was still warm. Kindnesses appear, then disappear so quickly that I forget their brief streaks. They vanish while cruelty pearls its durable shell. Goodness streams like hot water through my hair and down my skin, and I'm able to live again with the ache. Love wakens the world. Kindness is my mother, sending me a yellow dress in the mail for no reason other than to watch me twirl.
I'm Anya's mother, and the poem that I want to read has nothing to do with cancer. And when I mentioned the title to Andy, there was this silence, and he said, "Why? Where am I?" "What? What about me?" you said.
No, I didn't say that.
But I had talked to Anya about my feeling, and I'm going to read the poem right now. I felt always my wish was to be somewhere on Christmas Eve in the mountains with snow falling, and I want to be by myself. And I thought it was just wonderful. So her poem is Exile. Lately I've wanted to be alone, to leave home with nothing but a few books and my favorite shoes. I'd like to live in the mountains, but pleasantly, with a board, lot, and cheese and bread for my board. No computers, no commute, just to sit with a pen like now, writing honest lines of poetry that no one's likely to read. Simple, harmless, with words and furs for company, some music. At night, the wind at the shutters. In times of sorrow, the songs. I'm going to wait for the second one.
Oh, what?
Hi, Jennifer Franklin. Thank you, Andy. Thank you to Anya's family for having this idea, and thank you to Margot Stever for founding the Writers Center over 30 years ago, and also for being here today. So this is the poem I was talking about earlier, called In the Sanitarium. And this was Poem a Day on post.org. You can all read it. It's from her beautiful book, From Nothing. It's the first poem of Anya's I ever read. It was after the war. My father lay in an Austrian sanatorium, his lungs full of tuberculosis. Next to him, a young Soviet veteran needed to confess to another Russian. He had done something terrible, he said, in Kharkov before the Germans came. Under orders, he had taken enemies of the state, shoved them between two stopped trains, and burned them to death. Then swept away remains. Could he ever be forgiven for such a sin? How could he know, that tormented man, that my father's father was one of the dead? What chance that these two men would lie, shushed to sleep by nurses side by side? My father, unable to respond, turned his head, riven 6 more decades between two ghosts, one wasted from coughing, pale, one burning, both beyond any word he might have spoken. And the other poem I asked Andy if I could read is one that Anya posted before even getting it published, because she was so upset about all the news that she was reading about the people who were being interned at the border. And she wrote this a long time ago, and now things have gotten a lot worse. This is called For the Unnamed, and it just, one of the things about Anya, there's so many things I love about her, but one of the things that I loved about her was that even when she was sick, she always cared about everybody else and everybody else's suffering while she was undergoing so much suffering herself. And this poem shows that really well. It's called For the Unnamed. The blood filled my pad so quickly afterwards, a cushion stuck on, and half an hour later, balled in the trash, soaked red, blood seeping into the crotch of my panties. For days and days, it continued, this bleeding where the child had been. I never knew so much blood. Finally, the doctor gave me pills to make me bleed out. The nurse frowned at me. She thought I'd had an abortion. I peed crimson, watched clots drop in the water. Finally, the bleeding stopped. The baby's traces gone. Today, I imagine women curled on mattresses, blood flowing through their only clothes onto their sheets. The other detainees wave to get the guard's attention, but the guard says she doesn't speak Spanish. I hear an officer scold, "You did this to yourself," to a woman who fled the Honduras for from Honduras 4 months pregnant. There must have been moaning, must have been screams. I see women shackled around their pregnant bellies, their illegal uteruses, see women falling, unable to balance, their cuffed feet as limbs move inside them. I envision mothers and babies clenched together, women straining to stop the oozing that can't be stopped. I want to put my head to the cement floor, the stained bedding, and listen to the sounds that are trapped there. I want to swallow the prayers, the whispers, the curses, breathe in the cries, fill myself with blood and tissue, atone for what has been done in the name of the unnamed, the empty blankets, the souls that belong to no country. Thank you.
I'm Eric. I was a student of Anya's at Mercer, and I'm going to read Ending with a Line by Wisława Szymborska, and apologies for pronunciation on that. It is time for political poetry. It is time for poets to look at their gardens, to stop tending their tomatoes and roses. Flags demand to be waved in the streets, placards sprawled and markered and shaken. There are towers we need to march past, fences that need stoning, children who must be unlocked from cages. We need to hang sheets from balconies, our slogans painted red and black. Our poem should include riots, drownings, shredded organs, pardons of corrupt men, and deportations. Only I'm unable to write political poetry. I prefer verses about mountains, tulips, and statues of ancient goddesses. There's a white woman yelling at a black woman in a parking lot, the white woman shaking her finger in unearned rage. Apolitical poems are also political.
Hi everyone, I'm Fran. I'm one of Anya's Instagram friends, which sounds really strange to say, yet here I am. I became friends with Anya over a shared love of Sufjan Stevens. She loved a full-skirted dress as much as I do. And we also bonded over the actor Viggo Mortensen. I just moved to New York about a year ago and was hoping to catch up with Anya, but obviously life had other plans, which is something that I will regret for a long time. Anyway, I'm representing Sydney twice, once for me and once for another friend of Anya's who asked me to read a poem. Such a universal female gesture, a woman grabbing the seam of her stocking, tugging it forward over the exposed toe, tucking it under her foot so the tear won't show. There's something graceful and humble about the way she will balance, crane-like on one foot, cradling the other in her hand, her back bent, her face tilted downward, trying to hide the damage of the splintered floorboard or untrimmed toenail. Sometimes, when she's leaning over, a strand will float loose from its ponytail. Then she'll stand, recombing her hair with her hands, repair after tiny repair. Ideal speech. The whole world is a world apple, peeled and ever peeling, apple whose core is God. Our speech just a shadow of ideal speech, peering deeper but never reaching the centre. Witch hazel's thready yellow bloom, sweet yellow lashes in the park, red buds splitting through bark as though impatient for twigs. How I love the many-fingered body of this world. Listen to the Holy Ghost. She blows through you. She blows her poems right through.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I was fortunate enough to call Anya a friend. I absolutely adored her. This is Cape May at dusk. At the Cape, I stood alone on a platform watching swans gather, mallards and herons, and below me, a single hare feeding itself. In the twilight on soft, newly mown grass. I don't know why I'm still alive. I don't know how a line of poetry sometimes loses itself and finds me. I don't understand why my body is drawn to the marshes or the surf dragging itself noisily away from the shore, fuming breakers that will never know what it's like to love. Why does memory cling to the briny air, settling in my hair like the sandy wind? I've wasted so many days in half-life, in pop music, sticky as caramel on my molars, in those plastic-wrapped online friendships that cling tenaciously for a short time, then crumple in on their own emptiness. I should have been thinking of holiness and trying to find it, even on these humid afternoons when there's space for image, but the air is too dense to grab the form. I stand and watch the rabbit, a lean wild one, as it attends to its hunger, until a little girl comes stomping over, shrieking, and it disappears in the wild roses.
I met Anya once at Steve Bluestone's reading, and I read her poems. And I see this poem as from Anya to anybody who's visited a terminally ill loved one. I think it honestly traces the transformation we healthy visitors should appreciate. It's called Reading Ulysses. It's easy to mock Tennyson, but when cancer progresses, we return to Ulysses. Susan, who's dying, posts, "Come, my friend, it's not too late to seek a newer world," which is what makes the poem elegy and not bluster. Even in this cursed circle in which I dwell, we try to yield to nothing. The thin, young woman opposite the room from me doesn't want to stoop as the nurse injects chemo into a port drilled eye-light into her skull. She covers her face with a towel and then feels ashamed for hiding herself. We are made monstrous by tubes dangling from our wrists. Trailing behind us, we walk to the bathroom. Some require to be held up, doll-like. We know we frighten others as we nap, open mouth, wigs askew. Even when the rope is round our throats, cutting oxygen from the collapsed lungs through which we can no longer breathe, we gasp and gasp. Death will claim us as we brace ourselves up on our bed rails. I laughed once at Tennyson, but no longer. Though much is taken, much abides. Which is why I read this poem so often, and why Susan does too. The newer world does come closer. We can't help it coming closer. Ulysses will sail the storms till he dies, and so, my dear ones, will we. In memory of Susan Freed. And I'm
Anya's sister, Anya, and I'm going to read, she has so many wonderful poems, but I'm going to read one of my favorites, which is The Hazel Tree for Noah, her son. The mother died and grew into a tree. Through the loam she wept her roots, bones branching leafing, ripe with sap. In time, her body fruited, rich and brown, each nut a word she'd grown to tell her son, now that her speaking human voice was gone. That she chanted stories in his blood, sown language in his eyes, so he could dream. He hears the tooting of the mourning dove, its black band pulsing as it sings, the daylight's gold and glass and soft gray wings. The second poem I'm going to read is one of the latest, or the last she wrote after a visit that we had all together with my family and my mother and her family a couple weeks before she suddenly died. And before she died, she wrote this poem. Okay. After swimming, my niece's ponytail's a skinny lanyard as she climbs from the pool. Soaked hair, false blue water, the way blonde threads will darken when drenched and lose their fullness. All the silly dances in the living room, her arms whirling like egg beaters, hips whipping left to right, slick summer light off her cheek. I'm watching my past dancing, little slip of childhood, light bit of shine, and when adolescence closes over her head, will the thread of her voice be broken? Will her sentences float up at the end like mine did, phrased as blameless questions? Will she waste hours yielding herself to the glossy lip and tape measure, as I did and my friend before her? Or will she break the surface streaming, prismatic, humming, her own voice gathered, gem-like, statement and reply?
Would you like to read the poem that you were reading?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. This is a poem by Marjorie Maddox Casno, who would have liked to be here, but she's at her own poetry reading somewhere in Pennsylvania. And this is the picture that the poem is about. It's dedicated to Noah and Anya. Photo with bald heads, or nearly. The baby fuss is hers, compliment of the cancer we seldom speak, though she does, loudly and often, but not now. Instead, on this matte finish, she calmly cradles the red-faced infant, his small mouth open, life from the still living pulsing. His soft spot already sprouts strands she'll touch. And again. See how she stares out at you? Or at God? Just this sight of the picture-perfect smile she owns in the bright flash of her dark room. See how she embraces with her sleep-deprived, wide-awake eyes, much more than an omniscient, one-eyed camera could ever claim. Only she can reveal her. See, this is me, there, here, now. Grabbing my own ever after. That follow, the camera clicks and subtle shifts that follow. Her liturgy not of beginnings or ends, but persistence, holy continuation into our space of now, framing just so with the immortal moment of joy.
Anybody else would like to read a poem, just raise your hand afterwards or call out right after Mary.
Okay. I never read, but I'm really happy to be here to celebrate Anya's life. And there was a poem of hers that she talked about lanterns. I can't remember that, but I was looking through the book, and this one reminds me of that poem, Fireflies. The photographer has caught them in a tent of bedding, the darkness above and behind defined by a dome of streaks and sparks. I never harmed them growing up. To me, there were traces of magic in the ordinary dusk, like the beauty you find in surprised faces of girls, or in the gold coins that tumble from saints' open mouths. Long August, my sister and I chased them up and down the lawn, catching as many as we could on our thin, bare arms, or tracing the flight of a single flare into the trees brighter than snowflakes. And floating not down, but up, I see fewer and fewer every year, the same poison that kills mosquitoes killing the fireflies too. Though my mother swears 2 summers ago the backyard lit up like a skyscape, all that brilliant mating born on the summer swells. When I think of fireflies, I remember the June my husband and I, in our first house, danced evenings to Johnny Mercer's Glowworm, singing, light a path below, above, and lead us on to love. How I swished my skirt around my thighs while the empty rooms gleamed around us.
The small pink rose by the castle gate glows in the twilight, gathering strands of sunset in its petals. The tower's a ruin, but I keep my eye on the rose, on its many-hooded gaze that doesn't turn away from what approaches. To bloom is so foolish that it must be wisdom.
Would anybody else like to read a poem? I have a couple that I've got at the very end, but Steve, you want to read?
I'd like to say something.
Yeah. Come on.
Okay. I'm particularly glad that Claudia and Crystal are here. I don't know if they saw this. I did something when Anya died a year ago, and I don't know if you've seen or heard the words, so I'd like to say them today. I know that Andy's seen them, and so maybe Eric Brown has too. This is called Farewell to Anya, and it was written a year ago. Nearing 90, Donald Hall left us a little over a month ago. Aged 23 years after his wife, Jane Kenyon, aged 48, died of leukemia. For the rest of his life, Hall famously lamented her passing. In English, only Tennyson mourned the loss of a beloved at greater length. This past week, Anya Silver, aged 50, around off, also passed away, also a victim of cancer. Though not nearly as well known as Jane Kenyon at the time of her death, Anya will, I'm sure, and without benefit of as much lamentation, leave as powerful a legacy. To be born is to die. It's the basic human idea. And Anya, without a trace of self-pity, made that her most important theme. She fought metastatic cancer, progressive, inexorable, as some of us fight heart disease, or Parkinson's, only better. She praised the beginning, extolled the end, and continued. She even prospered. Her remarkable poetry grew yet more exact and more lyrical. Why not disobey, she asked, expressing an unresolvable difference with God. Unreached by faith, yet also of it. Of the 99 names of God, light was the one she loved the most, and so saw herself as star cloud, star stream. She rinsed her hair in that light, made love in it, and most important of all, never separated her body, cancer and all, no matter how ravaged, from the God whose name it is. I'll miss her, as will many others. She was a special friend and colleague, if only because I met her there. I'll always be grateful for my association with Mercer University. We were in the mountains over the weekend and set the mourner's cottage for Anya at a lovely stream, magnified and sanctified, glorified and praised, be the name beyond all blessings and hymns, praises and consolations that are ever spoken in the world. Enough, yet as we will forever think and feel, never enough. Amen. Thank you.
All right, I just have a couple of ones that I'd like to read. I want to offer two corrections. Anya did not lose the fight against metastatic breast cancer. She lost the fight against her government, against all of our own complacency to wake up and begin to fund seriously metastatic breast cancer research. And so when somebody dies of cancer, don't say they lost the battle with cancer. You can say, we lost her battle with cancer or his battle with cancer. Because Anya we just had last night and this morning horrible massacres involving gun violence, and Anya was as outspoken as she could be as a poet, devoting a poem to gun violence. How many people died over the last, is it 29, maybe? Every day, now this is not to take away from gun violence, she's absolutely serious about that, but I think maybe we should start thinking about cancer like gun violence. Every day in this country, 116 men and women die of just metastatic breast cancer. We don't hear the clicks of the guns, they don't get on Twitter, but they should. And we should take it as seriously as we should take gun violence as well. So this is for Anya's metastatic sisters especially, I think. Those were the ones that she spoke to most, but there are brothers out there with metastatic breast cancer as well. This is called Aren't We All So Brave? And this is from I Watched You Disappear for PS. I think this is Paula, who died of cancer in 2011. It's all right, a friend said when I asked her about dying. She could barely speak. The dead had already visited her. She was thin with a swollen belly, like a sparrow who'd swallowed a bell. I think of 3 women with brain tumors, comparing the sizes of their growths the way that one might examine a one-eyed kitten. Hectors, each one of them in their gaping gowns, waiting for the helmets that clamp their skulls in place for radiation. One bent the same evening over her toddler's bed. Courage, the last resource of the woman, arms strapped overhead, pulled into the pet after she couldn't climb stairs without coughing. Why didn't she scream as the smiling doctor showed her slides of her lung, collapsed like a ball sieved by a dog's gnawing incisors? Why instead did she just nod and even wish? On her way out, the nurses a Merry Christmas. Because those before us have scattered bravery like pebbles through the horror, the funneling dark, knowing we should not lose what makes us human. Because the well-thumbed stones we eat in terror turn to wafers in our mouths. So she has the note in here, one bent the same evening over her toddler's head. And the reason why I was silent after exile is, Emily, you're here tonight, and when I interviewed you, you were talking about having a child and how you want to hang on to all those moments and how you want to live for those moments with the child. And at the same time, that child, is it Max? Felix.
Was he screaming?
He was screaming, he was like having a total meltdown.
Oh my God.
By the way, this is, that was a great moment. And then you said, people say live in the moment, but it is really hard to live in the moment when Felix is throwing a conniption fit because I gave him a red bottle instead of a blue bottle. And so, look, Anya wished for exile, yes, because she wanted quiet and peace, yes. But anyone who knows Anya knows that she lived for this kid right here. And that's why I was silent, because I don't want you to know. I want you to know that you are everything to her. And so I wanted to read this from the last manuscript for you to embarrass you. You'll give me hell for this after I'm out of here. This is called Sacred Moments. Most people's are the same. Forest hikes, drifting in the ocean, falling asleep to rain with one's lover, or washing an infant's sparse curls in the kitchen sink. Sometimes the obvious answers are the best ones, like the Sermon on the Mount, and I'd love to. Why else would so many people face grief by standing to the shore at the shoreline, turn towards the water that slithers in and out without a mind for endings? Nobody mentions finding reading glasses at the dollar store, or eating a plate of gnocchi all alone in a strange city, or balancing a knot of kneaded clay on the mantelpiece. One evening, I lay on my stomach, weeping, wondering at what moment death would come, my brain heated like broth, shaking the lid of the pot. The only thing that calmed me down was my son's voice, narrating a Lego battle in his bedroom. It was a day of doom, with many casualties. I lay still and thought, I have you. Though my son wasn't even aware that I listened, or that I had lost control of the motions of my face, somehow I summoned the spirits of my sisters, who sat in the bed with me and waited, silent webs, till I was calm enough to get up and leave the room. Thank you all for coming, and please stay afterwards. I can give you a hug, and you can say hi to us, and we can all chat together. Thanks again for coming out.